realistic flower drawing feels overwhelming, then today's video might just change the way you approach it. Today we're going to be drawing this apple blossom step by step from a reference photo, and I'll show you how to break a complex piece into simple shapes that snap together almost like puzzle pieces. The process of drawing is incredibly helpful for getting familiar with your subject matter before you even pick up a paintbrush. And honestly, that can actually make the painting process less intimidating as well. Welcome to Sunlit Brushstrokes. My name is Jessica, and I'm so glad to have you join me as I break down my sketching process so that you have more confidence to approach your next drawing. Let's go ahead and get started. For supplies, I'm keeping things super simple today. This is just a cheap piece of paper that we're going to be drawing on, just like computer paper. I've got a regular drawing pencil, but really any pencil will work. I have a couple of erasers here. The kneadable eraser comes handy after I transfer onto the watercolor paper. It might be helpful to have a little extra cheap paper on hand as well as scissors and tape, but these are somewhat optional. So you'll see as I go how I end up using these. Towards the end of this video, I do transfer my image onto watercolor paper. So I do use Arches 140-pound cold press watercolor paper, along with some graphite paper to do my transfer. But of course, you can use whatever transfer method you prefer. And if you'd like to follow along with this reference photo, you can download it to your own device. I've got a link for this in the description below. The photo will also be helpful if you decide to go ahead and paint this yourself. Or if you'd like to paint along with me, I do have a full-length watercolor tutorial for this apple blossom on my Etsy shop. And once again, I'll include a link for that. Okay, so I'm going to start out by blocking in the basic areas where these petals, or I should say the flowers are, where we have our blossoms, because we have one blossom down here, and then we have another one that kind of comes up here, right? And then we have some little buds around it. So I want to see if I can kind of just get them more or less blocked in, then we'll worry about all the details around it, and just see. So this is just drawing practice. We're going to just take it as slow as we need to figure out where to place things. And I'm going to also kind of simplify. So like for the center here, this is about the center of the apple blossom. And I am thinking, rather than draw in every little stamen, I'm just going to kind of give us the basic overall shape. So this is not perfect. You could perfect this shape and get it just so. I think I'm just going to do something like that and then figure out where I see these little green sepal leaves between the petals. So I see one there. I feel like I see one kind of over here, and then kind of something here. This one's kind of interesting, actually. It has an extra little area that kind of juts out, but I'm just going to come down here and do this one. Try my best to kind of get them in there, and then you can't really see the ones in the back too well. Then I'm going to try and draw the petals on this particular blossom, and then we'll come and do this one. So we're going to kind of do it almost like a puzzle piece, snap the pieces together and see how this goes. So you can kind of see there's a petal that comes up to this little green shape, and then it kind of comes a little bit like so, kind of curls like so, and it comes around and around and around. You can kind of see this little piece that juts out a little bit. Actually, I think, are we okay with our placement there? Yeah, I think we are. I think we're okay. And then it kind of comes, you could say swoops this way or this way, right? You can see it's folded over. And we have this beautiful little fold on this petal. And then there's an area that's, you don't really see as much of the fold. There's just white coming in, kind of hitting it right there. So, or light, I should say. So it kind of comes something, you know, I'm not going to worry about the little details yet. I'm just going to get the basic shapes on here. Just to make sure I more or less get them the way I want them. Then I can come back in and, you know, there's a little tiny little indent there. Maybe the way the petal's growing. Maybe there's even, I don't think it's torn. I think it's just the way it is. So I'm just going to come in here and get this basic shape. Just make sure things are more or less going to fit before I come and refine. So come down here. You can see it kind of comes like so. And there's more than one way to do this. You could be more refined. You could use a grid. There's definitely more than one way to approach it. I'm just trying to do each little shape at a time and just kind of snap them together. So this one, you can kind of see how it fits against these green shapes. This one was kind of in there, and then this one, it's like it's right, kind of almost like it creates this little shape. If you look in the photo, right along there, you can kind of see it comes down. And then it does take a fold, comes across almost horizontally and then it kind of comes back out and does this little swoop over here. I think overall I'm okay with how this is coming. I see a little section here that all kind of comes as a part of this. I know I need to get the folds more correct still. I see a little section here, and this is interesting because it looks like this little area is folded over. This is one petal in the back, but this kind of comes and it kind of wraps around something like so. I know I'm not perfect. You're probably seeing the little slops that I'm doing as I go. I'm just trying to get approximate. You'll probably see things or pick up on things I'm not picking up on, and that's great. You do what you see in the photo, because that's the part that matters, is you're copying the photo to the best of your abilities, and then taking artistic license. If you just, you see fit, you think, you know what, I want to change something, then it's fine to change things. You don't have to copy the photo perfectly. The photo is a very helpful guide, and I tend to always say, look at the photo more than my art, but I think, okay, there's going to be a folded area over there too, but overall, I think that little blossom's working, I think. So I'm going to come over and do this one, and then I'll come and refine everything. So, and again, you could refine things more first, but I'm just going to see how these shapes fit together. I think I like this one. It kind of just seems like it's just like almost like sitting right in here almost, isn't it? And it comes out like a little ways, and then it just comes up. A beautiful little curve as we come along here, and then we have another kind of curve, kind of like it curves a little bit this way, a little bit of an S, if you will, over here. And then we have, wow, this petal in the back of here fits in more about here, and it's quite large. I'm wondering if I'm going to run out of space on this paper, but if I make it, or almost make it, that's good enough, because then I can just shift things around when I go actually to draw onto my watercolor paper. Yeah, I'm running out of the page a little bit. You know what? But because it's so slight, I'm okay with it. If you have a situation where you have run out of the page and you don't want to have to start again, this is one good reason to do it on a scrap of just cheap paper, because you can place things, right? When you go onto your watercolor paper, you can place it. But what you could do, if I had a lot more that I wanted to continue to draw here, and I realized, you know what, I don't need all the space at the bottom, or I want to go a little bit larger, I could just bring in another piece of paper and just tape it back here, if I'm capable of getting it up back there. Anyways, you could do something like that, and then just give yourself a little more space for your drawing. I'll do that if I decide I need it for those little buds. For now, I'll just stay with one piece of paper, and we'll play by ear. So I'm just going to come in here, and kind of, I would say this is kind of the area where we see these little stamen. Let's just draw a few of them because they're a little bit more defined, or not defined. There's just like a few that really stand out, and then the rest are a little bit whatever in here. But these top ones, they really matter, I think. So I'll just go ahead and kind of loosely draw them, something like that. I know we're going to have all the little filaments and a few more stamen down here that we can create with our paintbrush, but let's just go with that for now. Then over here, we have a fairly nice petal that's definitely folded. We cannot see the whole thing, so it kind of comes up like so. And oh wow, yeah, this is interesting. I definitely need to bring this one out a little further into here, but something like so. Okay, then let's pay attention to the green. There's not as many green shapes, and they're harder to see here, but I see a little one here, and there's something kind of in here, and then it kind of disappears behind there, but that's going to help define this petal, so I'm putting it there. And this petal sits maybe like so. Okay, I think something like that. Yeah, I think I'm happier with that. And then this one back here, I think it'll fit in okay. Try and kind of see the shape. You can see it gets narrower at the top and then wider as it comes down here. Try and achieve that. And then you can see the buds behind here. And I might as well go ahead and draw them in there. They're kind of pretty. They are kind of out of focus, so I don't know how important they are for this, but I'm going to just put them in there. And you can see I will run out of space for my buds, but that's okay. I can either enlarge this a little bit or just shift everything. So why don't we just go ahead and just go like so. Use whatever kind of tape you want. I'm just going to move up a little bit. Let's try that. And I'm just going to tape it down. And then we have a little bit extra space to draw. You could definitely do your initial drawing on a bigger paper too. I end up cutting this as a smaller size, and I'll decide how large I want to go with my actual painting. I've got some tape here. You can use whatever tape. It could be masking tape. It doesn't have to be clear tape, but hey, why don't we just go ahead and just do a quick little tape job at the sides. There we go. Now we have more space to keep drawing. So we could finish this petal a little bit more since we didn't quite finish it earlier. And I don't think I want too much up here anyways. Like I do want to cut off fairly close to the edge of the paper, but at least we have just that smidgen extra paper space so that we can do this bud. Because I'm like, you know, I might want that bud in the picture. I don't know. He's almost stacked though. Don't know if I like quite how stacked it is on top of that one. Maybe I'll slide it just, it is kind of stacked in the photo, but I'm thinking I'm just going to take artistic license in this case and just bring it down. You can kind of, I know you can see this is a little goofy looking bud, but it's I think I'm going to be happier with it. So I'm just going to go something like that. I think it kind of wraps like that. Maybe this is in front of that. We could always shrink it a little bit more too. Again, we don't want it to look like when you see something that's a little awkward or cloney looking or too, you know, samey, if that makes any sense. You can take artistic license and change it so that it's not like a duplicate or it doesn't look like horns coming off the top of this or something. So I'm going to just go with that. It's a little less prominent, but it actually keeps it a little smaller inside the picture. And, you know, I'm going to shrink this bud as well because I don't want it to be too cloned with this one. It's, again, kind of almost like a twin. Sometimes that's just a little distracting. So now let's go ahead and draw in. We want a bud over here. So I'm going to draw this bud in here loosely. We'll get the detail in a minute. This one is about here. Yeah, it's about here. So we'll just put it in here. I do like these other buds, I think, the way that they are. So I'm just going to copy them at face value. This one here. And this one is tucked in here. I might need to shift this one a little bit. Let's see. I might be just a little off in my drawing and that's why things are not fitting, or it just might be that my bud is a little bit off. This one actually comes a little further than the flower itself, doesn't it? Yeah, it comes out a little bit more, which again, if you don't like anything, you can change it. But I'm just going to bring this petal, I think this petal needs to come out, this one, just a little bit more. And then, I don't know, I could make this, it is a little bit oblong, but I think I'm just going to be okay. It's a flower, it's forgiving. I'm going to be okay with it not coming quite as far this way. I think I'm just going to let it be a little bit closer. And then this one can just tuck beside it, pretty much where I have it. It can come a little bit more this way, but something like that. Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. So I'm just going to make sure I'm happy kind of with the veins or where I'm going to be placing the veins. This one can make this a little bit more like so down here. This one, I think I'm happy. Yeah, I think I don't need to do much to refine this one. I think I'm going to be okay with it. This here, just kind of give ourselves a few little veins, figure out where we might want to place them later. Again, that's optional. Sometimes you can just do a little bit of sketching or extras on your sketch. It just kind of helps almost like prep your brain for what you're going to be doing later, even though it doesn't really matter if you do that on your sketch because it's going to be happening with the paint. It's not going to be happening with the trace, but it's just sometimes helpful to get more familiar with your subject. So I see a little bit there. And to be honest, I'm not sure if this is quite folded over or if the light's just hitting it. You can see the light area, so I'm going to draw it in. Might be a little bit folded here, but this, hard to say. I think it's difficult to tell for sure if it's a fold or just the way it is. So let's just make sure I'm happy with this. Yeah, I'm happy, I think. Overall, it's not perfect, but I'm happy enough. And there's a little vein in here. Just leave it there. And this, You kind of can see, when I zoom in a little bit, I can see there's a little bit of green there, and that does help give this a little definition. So I'll just put that little bit of green kind of in there. It's all kind of one shape. It's just this particular petal kind of comes up, so it almost looks like it's two shapes, but just give ourselves just some veins. This definitely wants to come all the way up to here, so pay attention to that. And then, like I say, with this, I think it's not even all folded over, it's just light hitting it, but you could paint it either way, it'll work. Do those veins. And then this, definitely kind of, like it's curved over like so. See that tiny little area in here? I'm just going to color dark. There's green there. That might be helpful to kind of notice that later. Okay, now let's get these buds done. And I'm going to move through them fairly quickly because I think you can kind of see the point of what I'm doing now. I've got these circles, right? And I'm just filling in with the little petals that I see. So I'm just piecemealing or snapping the pieces together, if you will, where I'm like, okay, there's another petal there. There's another one here. You could simplify. You wouldn't need every little fold here because there are quite a few in this one. I don't think you need them all to make this believable. So you can decide if you want to simplify, put a few less petals. I think I'm going to simplify a little bit in here. Just definitely want this one. This one matters. The way it's folded over is helpful. And we're just going to go like so. And the petals behind it. Yeah, I'm going to simplify that one. I'm not going to do every single little petal. There's quite a few there. Okay, this one has fewer, so let's just go ahead and probably get them all. Kind of comes up like so. And then in here, I'm going to do this little cap. You see it's folded over. Again, it's a folded over petal, but that matters. It comes like so. And then definitely I like the way this one kind of comes up and wraps like this. Whoops. I took a little bump because that paper under there kind of sent my pencil for a little bit of a ride. Okay. Good enough, good enough, good enough. Let's move over down here and do these ones. Let's do this one so I can see it's quite pretty. I like how this is folded like so. And I kind of like that one. It's again, it's kind of that petal is poking out a little bit, and I think that's pretty. Okay, kind of like that. Yeah, I like that. It's good enough. And then this one, I do like the fact it's got this beautiful fold here. And then it kind of goes like so. You can see kind of inside it. And then that. Okay, now yeah, there's definitely not as much space here, but you know what I think I might do? Some of it is behind there, so I'm just going to bring this petal down. I'm going to bring it down. I think I'm bringing it more than I see in the reference photo. This is where I'm taking artistic license. If this was a portrait and things weren't fitting together just so, you would want to erase and kind of make sure they do fit. But this isn't a portrait, it's a flower. So we have some grace. You would know if it was a portrait. You'd be like, something's not working. I'm just going to pull this a little farther this way. And then I do like how this kind of wraps like this. This is kind of pretty. And it's got like a little cap here. And I'm simplifying in this area. And I'm going to make this come in front part of the time. And this is going to be behind. And you can see I've kind of almost cut more off than is actually cut off, because I've got this, just the placement's just a little bit snug there, but I'm okay with that. So now it's time to deal with our leaves really quickly. I'm going to do almost what I see in the photo, but I am going to change things a smidge. So I'm going to come in here. I actually see a leaf, very faint leaf here. I'm going to just do center vein and then do something like so. I'm going to come over here and I can kind of see like a leaf. It doesn't seem quite as, it doesn't come to quite the same tip as some of them, but I'm taking artistic license. I'm going to draw some of these in just simply and loosely. They're very dark and they are hard to see depending on how you're looking at your reference photo. They're just really hard to see down here. So I'm not going to worry about the fact that I'm not getting them perfect. And then over here, I do want one that's kind of, I like the idea of having it kind of curved, like something like this, where you can kind of see it actually could come even further down this way. I like that idea. Something like that. Yeah, I like the idea of curving that leaf a little bit. I like the idea of the folded over leaf, and there's one over here. I'm just not sure if I'm quite happy with how it's landing in the reference. The beauty of being able to draw is that you can even modify things when you go to paint. This is how I initially sketched my leaf, but when I actually went to paint it later on, I modified it a little bit. And so here's how I ended up drawing things midway through the painting process. So for anyone who happens to buy the tutorial, both the outline and the finished painting that you're going to receive are going to have this modified leaf. I'm going to then have to adjust and make sure I'm happy with all my other leaves and how they're kind of fitting around it. So down here, might be changing things a little bit. I think I'm just taking artistic license here. Here you can see I'm drawing in this branch, but as I was painting these blossoms later on, I ended up eliminating the branch altogether. And so the decision to add this branch is really up to you. Go ahead and maybe put a leaf here just to fill in the gap. And then I've got to figure out how I want to handle this area right here. Some of you are like, oh, you know exactly where you want to put your leaf. And you probably have it perfectly figured out. For me, I'm not sure. I might just go something like this. I'll come back and visit it in a second. I'll put something in here, just kind of fill it up. Just a small little something. Just a tiny little, say a bud leaf here. Maybe one of the little sepal leaves could be right here. And then maybe this could be a little bit narrower right here. We'll see. I will wait and figure that out for sure. I'll draw it like this, but I'll wait and paint it once I'm a little bit more confident, because I'm a little bit like, not 100% sure, but I'm not planning to do the leaves till later on. So I can always mess with that one a little bit after. So I'm going to go ahead and trace this the way I usually do, using my graphite paper and onto my piece of watercolor paper. I'm just going to trim off the excess paper so that I don't have as much thickness for tracing, especially because I barely even ended up using that back paper. That's a handy trick if you need to use it, but you can see I barely ended up drawing on it. So I'm going to trim off a little of the excess paper just to make it a little easier when I go to trace. So I'll trim it down. No need to do this extra step, but I'm going to do it so that I have less bulk to deal with here. Then I've got my watercolor paper, smooth side up. I'm going to come in with my graphite paper and just lay it down. I'm going to kind of just come to one corner so I don't have as much bulk on all the sides. And I'm going to feel through the watercolor, or through the tracing paper. I can tell the top of the painting is around here. I'm going to just trim off more at the bottom, since I don't mind trimming these leaves a little off. You could use a slightly larger piece of watercolor paper. I'm using a 5x7 just because it's a nice standard size, and I'm feeling like I'm still happy with how everything's fitting here. So I'm going to just do that and tape it down. Or you could even use a larger piece of watercolor paper and make a larger painting, but I've got more tape here than I need. I'm just going to tape the four sides down, and then I'll go ahead and trace everything. You do want to make sure that your watercolor paper doesn't end up moving around underneath. You could always put a piece of tape as well on one of the corners, just keep your watercolor paper stable. I'm going to hold things, but just be aware that if your watercolor paper slides and isn't being held down, then you could end up messing up your trace. So just be aware of that. It sounds kind of obvious, but it can happen. So I'm going to go ahead and just trace everything on here. I'm going to use a blue pencil just so that I don't get lost in all my graphite. And I'm just going to go ahead and just trace the shapes that I need. And this is way faster, of course, than the drawing stage. And this is that leaf I'm not 100% sure about, but we will revisit it throughout the process. Once you think you've got your trace, you might want to just lift a couple corners and just take a peek and make sure you're happy with everything you've got. I think I am. I think I got everything that I need for this painting. So I'm just going to lift this off. I'm pretty sure I'm going to want to make this leaf actually larger and make it exit the painting. This is just the composition I'm going with. If you wanted to, there's no reason that you couldn't, like I say, have a larger background and use a larger piece of paper. And then you've got more background breathing space as well. But I kind of like the idea of just kind of cropping this in close. So I'm going to try that and go with that today. And you can definitely play with your background and make it more or less a part of the painting. So I'm just going to use my kneadable eraser and lift the graphite. Actually, I'm going to do this. One of my viewers mentioned that they'll roll their kneadable eraser and then they'll use it like this to get rid of excess graphite. That actually works pretty good. Something I never really did. So there you go. You can have, I tried this the other day and I was like, oh, that actually does work pretty good for lifting excess graphite. So there's a quick way to get rid of the excess. Just be careful. Sometimes this almost takes more than you want. As I mentioned earlier in this video, you're free to paint this using the reference photo we used today, or you can find the full-length watercolor tutorial on my Etsy shop where I guide you step by step through the entire painting. But either way, I hope this tutorial has brought a little taste of God's beauty and peace into your everyday life, and that it's inspired you to continue enjoying your own creative journey. See you again soon. Bye.